Kind of like that. Different tone. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? On Here in America, a holiday. They call it Labor Day. And so, hey, we're here to um, enjoy labor free. Hello, everyone. So good to see you. Let me just invoke great favor upon you on this really hot day where I live. May there be nothing missing, nothing broken found in your life. And speaking of heat, man, probably going to get up to 101, 102. That ain't normal, folks. Hello, everyone in the chat room. So good to see you. Thank you for joining me. And I know that you got a lot of places you can go. So it's an honor. And I just want to thank you and all the moderators. Thank you all for, you keep it clean, mean, and keep it growing. And I appreciate, thank you all. I know we have one of our folks here from Beirut. So, Catherine, good to see you, and trust all is well. Just looking at a lot of people here that I haven't seen before, but welcome if this is your first time in. And for the rest of us, hey, yeah, it may be a holiday, but knowledge never takes a break, does it? It does not. So, we got talented people in our community. I just got this one in. This is from Mark, who makes these, and I thought that did very well. I like the representation of what that is. So, yeah, talisman, folks. If you don't have one, you should have one. If you're in a particularly religious belief, which is cool, but all the denominations have their sigils and their symbols. My wife and I were out Saturday, and we drove past a church, and very strange name, First Plymouth Congregational Church of Christ or something. And what caught my eye was right where their big old sign is, had this sigil representing their belief. And, if I hadn't taught sigil magic here, we just scraped the surface of it. You know, you would have passed right by that and said, nothing about it, just another church. But oh, no, no, no. And my wife and her daughter was in there, and she saw it as well. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's a sigil. They're everywhere, folks. So educate yourself. They didn't give us a manual when we got into this place. They didn't do that. And what happens for most of us is that we end up reading what somebody else came up with. Here's a fact, and it's undisputable, cannot be argued against. Every religious book is either the creation of the imagination of the one penned it, or all sacred books are channeled. So if they can use it, the rest of us can't? Hey, I didn't write it, I just look at it and, you've got to use common sense and cognitive reasoning, and you got to question everything. I think that that's the greatest thing about free thinkers. And we are the messengers, no doubt about it, is that we question everything. Why? Well, we found out what they told us was a lie. Hydration, ladies and gentlemen. The number one problem in most ailments is lack of hydration. Anyway, I hope you, if you're up here where I live, y'all know. So the question I have for us today is this, excuse me, is Do you believe in a place called hell? Hmm? How many of you believe in a place called heaven? Hmm. Okay. Those that do, can you describe in detail what each place is like? Furthermore, can you tell exactly where it is? Where is these places? Now, the whole idea that it's under the earth, that's preposterous. The idea that it's directly above us, well, we can look at the evidence and say no, not to say that it may not be there, but it's very difficult. Heaven is a construct that the 50 years that I was in Christianity was never explained. But boy, they could describe hell. All torment, ever, damnation, and yada, yada, yada. And, I bought into that script. I really did. Hook, line, and script, brother. It's like, all right, yeah, yeah. Preached against, man, it's the, um, isn't it interesting how we preach from a book that those that we're preaching to don't believe in? Sorry for my dry throat. It's really dry out there. And we were doing some fire mitigation earlier today. And, we've seen the pictures. All those pictures, by the way, came out of the Renaissance and the Dark Ages. I wonder if there's any correlation to that. I don't know. But it was a great control matrix. I mean, how many times have we said, "I'll go to hell"? Well, I hope you burn in hell. And boy, I mean, we're quick with that. Boom, boom, those curses, Of course, indicating that hell is, only going to be for them, not you. Right? Because, why, we got the ticket. All right. You have to admit, these are the things that, deep thinkers think about. The inevitability is that I read an article recently that was talking about rock and roll. And, rock and roll was in the annals of mankind very recent and very rare. Excuse me. Rock and roll was all about rebellion. It was the first time that in our current modern man that's written that we know of, where the youth literally created a whole new paradigm. And that paradigm affected the reality of back then. And they went on to say that there'll never be another time like that. Even the record companies, they're hiring AI algorithms to write music. And they were saying that, we've lost a lot of the ones, Tom Petty, Harrison. I could just think David Bowie, just a number of them. And when you look at the list of those who were the originators of rock and roll, they're all in their 70s. They're all not in as good a shape as Mick Jagger. And, even Mick had to get a replacement part. So this brings up what is for me a fascinating study. When something has been forbidden, and when you erect the walls inside your thought kingdom, and you don't violate that, you don't transgress it, Well, then that what's directly implying that there's a whole knowledge that you're never going to know about. How can you get that in a lifetime and then have a judgment? No. I've told you all that I never was an advocate or believed in reincarnation. Yet I continue to ask myself, how is one lifetime enough? How could I be judged in one lifetime on the standard of all knowledge? Who can judge me on that? Who can judge you? I'm not qualified to judge you. Fact is, no one's qualified to judge you. You're the only one. And so the spirit realm, wow, it's all around us. We're over here on visas because the truth is we're all residents of the spirit realm. Decades of my life, you think about the profoundness of that perspective. So if I'm a resident already over there, as you are, shouldn't we be able to have the right to call home? E.T. call home, Yeah. And so how many of us then believe in death? Well, we all do. We don't want to talk about it. We don't even want to describe it. And as the information on this, by the way, isn't that a cool graphic? Yeah, I did that. That was really cool. Death is nothing more than a paid guide. That's all it is. A recent, I think it was a Pew study poll, asked about 4,000 plus people what they were most singularly afraid of. Death topped it all. So we certainly seem to, I don't know, don't want to talk about it, but yet it's always there. And again, I contend that if the spirit realm is in fact the dominant realm where we're from, why? We should at least begin to get to know what that place is. And, when you think about it, death is nothing more than part of the living process. The air is so dry in here. Anyway, I'm just complaining. I have a book, and we're going to get tomorrow back into the reading of the Spirit book. But this is a book. Let me just pull it up here to share it with everybody. This book is Alan Kardec's book, Heaven and Hell. Fascinating read. I mean, just a fascinating read. And the fact is, all life is, in one sense, afraid of death. It's instinctive. It's intuitive. We struggle with how to reconcile the death. Unfortunately, many look to religion. All religions have their particular take on death, and we're going to talk about that. But yet, we all know it's coming. And that causes a lot of fear when you don't know about the unknown. Fear is just an absence of knowledge. I mean, if you knew about it, are you afraid of turning on a stove? No. Lighting a match? No. Are you afraid when you see light in the sky because of a storm? No, you know it's lightning. Knowledge eradicates fear. I apologize. I need to get a humidifier in here. I want to go into here. This is interesting. This fear is an effect of the wisdom of providence and consequence of the self-preservation instinct common to all living beings. Yeah. Such fear is necessary as long as people are not sufficiently enlightened about the conditions of the future life. I never looked at death as future life. But if I believe in the afterlife, well, then it would be future life. Fear acts as a counterweight to the tendency which, without its restraining force, would lead us, get this, to prematurely leave our life behind and to neglect the earthly labor that must serve for our advancement. Heavy. What it's saying here, and I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, is that if we really knew what future life is, we'd all be ready to get on, man. So like, let's get the hell out of here. I'm gone, man. Are you crazy? Why would I stay? And it's an odd way to look at future life. And I think that's a phenomenal term. What's your future life going to be, David? In the chat room. Yeah. Al, tell me what your future life is going to be. Can anyone describe what your future life is going to be? Isn't it odd how we never get past that paradigm? We think of death as finality, as loss. You know, if humanity got a handle on what death really was, we'd put the funeral business out of business. We put the whole grieving thing out because it's a rejoicing time. Even those that are tragically cut short. No, we don't look at it like that, do we? It's, oh, it was so good. He was such a good man. Oh, we miss him so much. Your ass. If you really knew, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't send that type of energy over to them. Some say that that's hell. Think about that. You send grieving frequencies of this loss, this heaviness, and you're projecting it right on that individual. Spiritually, that's a weight most spirits can't hold up to. But you never thought about it in that way, have you? Now, I'm not going to get into all of this, but we're going to get into the highlights. I want to get into this, to the degree that humans better comprehend future life, the fear of death decreases. Once their earthly mission has become clear, and I think that's what most people miss. You hear it asked all the time, why am I here? What's my purpose? We all have one. It's for the betterment of humanity. We somehow lose sight of that. And it says, once their earthly mission becomes clear, they calmly, resignedly, fearlessly await the end. I mean, you've got a mission here. And if most of us get tuned into it in time, it's promotion, baby. Yeah. But what we end up doing is that we end up adapting a thought that begins to alienate us to what our mission is. And if we also understood this, we would certainly understand we're going to be meeting our friends again after death. The reactivating the relationships they had here on our earth, of not losing one single fruit of their labor. You see, I think sometimes we have this perception that it's all lost. No, it's not all lost. You're here for a purpose. In order to free oneself from the fear of death, one must regard death from the right point of view. One must have entered the spirit world through thought, getting as precise an idea of it as possible. This denotes on the part of the incarnated spirit a certain amount of development and an ability to detach itself from matter. For those who are not sufficiently advanced, material life prevails over spiritual. Now you think about this, and it is fascinating. I don't know one person who is awoke, quote unquote, that isn't more in tune to the spirit realm than those that are in religions. I would contest it by saying this, that it's the free thinkers, it's the ones who have awoke out of the paradigms that are truly spiritual, because they're not constrained by a box. You can't constrain a spirit. And it breaks through all of these paradigms that we're taught. Heaven, hell, how can those exist? How did we ever get into this idea of somehow a perverted justice or reward to the same perversion of hell and punishment? No. You see, your spirit, my spirit, we need strength. And that strength helps us to acquire maturity. A spirit coming in on their mission at the age of 5 is going to be far different than another spirit who's here at 55 that is well in the process of completing the mission. The two spirits are spirits. The difference is the degree of maturity, awareness of the mission, of their mission, and how well they overcome it. And fortunately, Earth is really a suck place. And I know people would have issue with that, but I would certainly be able to argue the points as to tell you why this is not a good place. And as we begin to learn our missions, fear decreases to the degree that certainty increases and disappears when certainty is complete. Listen to this. This state of things is postponed and prolonged by purely human causes, why we're here, this advancement. The first cause is the aspect from which the future life has been presented, an aspect that might satisfy little developed minds, but which cannot satisfy the enlightened reason of reflective individuals. Thus, they say, since they present us with principles contested by logic and the positive data of science and claim such principles to be absolute truths, it is because they are not actually true at all. Hence the disbelief of some and the dubious beliefs of great many. More people are walking away from organized religion today than they've ever seen. It's a serious situation for many of the organized religions. Are trying to reinvent themselves. But the problem is as one recent poll showed with millennials, religion is becoming very irrelevant in their lives. They've probably seen the hypocrisy of the previous generations all the way back. No one's been able to successfully navigate, the idea. The future life is a vague idea to them, more a probability than an absolute certainty. You ask more people about the spirit realm, about what happens when they pass over there, they get very uncomfortable. They become frustrated because they can't describe it. And if they're of a particular belief system, they'll say, well, it's in the book. Well, what does the book say? Well, book says all I got to have is my name written in this book of life and I'm in. And what are you going to do after that? Well, there'll be something to do. That's not a future life. That's playing roulette in Las Vegas. I hope it hits 33, So they don't have the certainty about, number one, the spirit realm, much less themselves back into it. And they would believe that they would desire it to be so, but they explain, but what if it really isn't true? The present is here and now. Let's concern ourselves with it first. The future will take care of itself. Then they add, what is the soul really? A point, an atom, a spark, or a flame of some kind? How does it feel, see, or perceive? The soul does not seem like an actual reality to them, but rather an abstraction. And this is where things become what I call into the gray zone. Because everybody seems to have a different opinion about death, about the spirit realm. Can we talk to the spirits? Can the spirits talk to us? Can we change this whole paradigm? Is what one book says going to actually be the future? How can that be when that one book is in direct opposition to other such books? But the problem is that when you get humans to start feeding into that, it takes on a life of its own. It actually transforms our very species. Another cause for remaining attached to earthly things, even among those who most firmly believe in the future life. How about referring to death now as nothing more than the future life? It takes the whole sting out of it. You tell someone, oh, they didn't die. They just entered into their future life. It's a whole lot better than you think that, and this is what always gets me. If people really believe in the afterlife, again, why are you grieving at a funeral? Your belief should sustain you in saying, hey, that's fine. I'll see Jack on the other side. If I know him, it's the movie City Slickers. When Curly died, the cook, and then the prayer said, Lord, we give you Curly. Try not to piss him off. And actually, there's more truth to that one statement than what most of us can believe. So we must confess that the picture that religion has sketched out concerning the subject is nothing seductive and even less consoling. On one hand, there are contortions of the damned and eternal torture and flame, paying for the errors of their momentary lives. Centuries follow centuries without any pity or hope for a commuting of their sentence. And what is more pitiless is the repentance would be futile. On the other hand, are the souls languishing and suffering in purgatory as they wait their deliverance at the goodwill of the living, who will pray for them or will beseech others to pray for them. without being able to put forth any effort of their own to get out. These two categories comprise the great majority of the population beyond the grave. Above them soars the very limited class of the elect, enjoying contemplative beatitudes of all eternity. This eternal usefulness, even though preferable to nothingness, of course, is nothing but, are you ready for this? A make-believe. It would be hell. The monotony. Someone told me recently, well, Wayne, I'm going to be up praising Jesus all the time. I said, really? Why? They looked at me, well, it was incomprehensible to them. Well, what do you mean why? I said, that's all you're going to do? I said, you might as well be dead. Cease nothingness. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe that is, and this is what we're saying. It is, how shall we say it? This is why in paintings depicting the blessed, we see angelic figures that seem to express more boredom than true blissfulness. The spirit world can't be like that. It would cease to exist. I mean, talk about finite. You see, this picture neither satisfies the aspirations nor the instinctive idea of progress, which is the only one capable to absolute bliss. It is difficult to imagine that upon being baptized, the primitive, who only possess an obtuse morality, is suddenly on the same level as someone who, after long years of labor, have reached the highest degree of knowledge and morals. It is even less conceivable that a child who has died at a very early age before being aware of its own acts will enjoy the same privilege solely because of a ceremony in which its own will be played no part. Such ideas should not hesitate to concern the most fervent believers, no matter how little they think about them. We don't think about this. This is deep. I mean, if you're going to be over on this channel, we get into the deep stuff. Got to stop and think about this. Particularly if you're the baby boomers, the departures are upon us. It becomes more relevant, folks, as if you're fortunate enough to have life long enough. Although I have talked to those in their 90s who will tell you long life is also a punishment. Isn't that odd? If the future happiness does not depend on working to progress while on earth, then the ease with which this happiness is believed to be acquired by means of a few outward practices, and even by the possibility of being purchased with money, without serious inner reform of character and habits, places more worth on the pleasures of the world. Many deeply believe that because of their future is assured by fulfilling certain formulas or by postposed gifts that cost them nothing, then it is superfluous for them to make sacrifices or suffer anything for the benefit of others, since salvation may be had by each working for himself or herself. Of course, not everybody thinks this way, for there are many noteworthy exceptions. However, one could not deny that most actually do think this way, especially the little enlightened masses. And the idea commonly held regarding the conditions of happiness in the other world tends to prolong attachment to the things of this one, and therefore encourages selfishness. One professor wrote that the reason why mankind is doomed to destruction is that it's each man for himself first. Very few actually have the true mindset of helping others before themselves. And in today's modern world, it's all about the money, baby. It's about your social status. What kind of car are you driving? Or you got new clothes? Or, all in all. You can't be spiritual and then say, well, I want this. I want, wait a minute. Which one are you wanting? The most enlightened that I have seen have rejected all materialism. People would say, well, then, Wayne, we would go back to the Dark Ages. I wouldn't know about that. Are you saying then that what socialists say is not possible? That there is not a utopian where man serves his brother first? I can't figure out how it's going to be in the afterlife in heaven when it's not being done down here. People think that you get this proverbial lobotomy. If you're an asshole here, you're going to be an asshole over there. It's just the way it is. If you're afraid of everything here, unless you start learning and developing, you're going to be afraid of everything over there. You carry it with you. And I don't think a lot of people like to think about that. I know there's a few I can see. We would add that everything, all of our customs, contributes towards causing us to mourn the loss of earthly life and to dread the passage from earth to heaven. Death is surrounded with morbid ceremonies that serve more to terrorize than to awaken hope. If one depicts death, it is always done so it is revolting aspect and never as a sleep of transition. We don't get that, do we? All of death's symbols remind us of the destruction of the body, portraying it as dreadful and defleshed. The soul is never presented radiantly, detaching itself from its earthly fetters. The departure to that happier world is only accompanied by mourning of the survivors, as if a big disgrace had befallen the deceased. They say eternal goodbyes, as if they will never see them again. And what they regret is that the deceased have lost the pleasures of this world, as though they have not discovered greater pleasures beyond the grave. Such is a misfortune, they say, to have died so young, rich and happy, with the perspective of such a shining future. The idea of an even better future barely passes through their mind because it has not set down deep roots. Thus, everything works together to inspire the terror of death instead of the awakening to hope. There is no doubt that humankind will take a long time to undo such preconceptions, but such will happen to a degree that their faith is firmly established and to the point that they can conceive of a more wholesome idea of the spirit life. And that's the problem. That's why, reading tarot cards, talking to someone and seeing in their future, communing with the dead. You see, I did it in Christianity. People get insulted when I say that, but that's what religion does. It's communing with the dead. They've just altered your perspective and told you, well, no, it's quite permissible because here you're talking to God or his representative. They're dead. They're spirits. It's spirit conjuring. But you leave that, then they say, well, now, you can't do that. Deep stuff, I know, for a Monday and a holiday. My wife is just grinning. What is more, the useful belief that places souls in regions that are only accessible to thought and where they become somehow unknown to the living? The church itself sets up an impassable barrier between the living and the dead. and declares that the relationship is broken and that any kind of communication between them is impossible. If the souls are in hell, all hope is lost of ever seeing them again, unless we ourselves also end up there. If they find themselves among the elect, however, they are completely absorbed in the contemplative beatitudes. All this interposes between the dead and the living a distance that leads us to regard the separation as eternal, which is why we prefer to have beings whom we love right here with us, suffering on earth instead of seeing them leave, even if they are going to heaven. Finally, will the soul who is in heaven really be happy knowing that its child, father, mother, or friends are burning in hell forever? Now, you know, what I was told on that, well, God's going to wipe your memory of that. Okay, now wait a minute. He's going to wipe my memory. Has he done this before? I mean, that's a fraud. To wipe my memory? It's a fraud. Think about it. How does this work out now? Now I'm going to continue going on because I have a place here that we got to begin to get into. So we got this thing called heaven. Now, it usually designates, the word is seal, which designates an undefined space that surrounds the earth, more particularly the part that is above our horizon. It comes from the Latin column, which we get column, formed from the Greek kilos, concave, because the sky used to seem to be an immense concavity. The ancients believed in the existence of many superimposed skies composed of both solid and transparent matter, forming concentric spheres. Earth was in the center. As they spun around the earth, these spheres swept along the heavenly bodies that contained their orbits. This idea came from a limited astronomical knowledge and was employed by all theologians, which devised the gradations of heaven and the different degrees of blissfulness, furthermost being the abode of supreme bliss. According to the most common opinion, there were 7 heavens. Hence, the expression to be in seventh heaven was to express perfect bliss. Muslims believe in the existence of 9 heavens, and which each one of the happiness of believers becomes greater. The astronomer Ptolemy counted 11 and called the last one Imperium because of the brilliant light that reigned therein. To date, this continues to be the name poetry gives to the region of eternal glory. Christian theology recognizes 3 heavens. The first is the region of the air and the clouds. The second is the space in which the heavenly bodies orbit. And the third is located beyond the second and is the dwelling place of the Most High, the habitation of the elect, those who contemplate God face to face. According to this belief, it is said that St. Paul was taken up into the 3rd heaven. Now, I had to go back and look at this, and actually, Paul said there were 7 heavens. Here we go. The various doctrines related to the dwelling of the blessed all rest upon the double error of regarding the earth as the center of the universe and of limiting the region of the heavenly bodies. It is beyond this imaginary limit that all doctrines have located the blessed region and the dwelling place of the Almighty. It is a strange anomaly that locates the author of all things, the one who governs all things, at the extremities of creation instead at the center, where the radiant thought of the divine could embrace everything. You see, when you start breaking this down, you say, now, wait a minute. If I am going to a future life, where is it? Well, the angels will guide you there. Oh, really? I don't know about you, but I'm not too keen on that. not sure which God they serve. People get upset when I say that. But if you're a Christian, then what you're denying is the faith of every Jew, every Muslim, every Hindu, every Taoist, every Buddhist. Because what you're saying, well, yeah, bless your little heart, you know. Now, we here in the West, that's predominantly where it is. Now, we're becoming much more cultural, where we're now seeing the influx of much more other beliefs, particularly in America. And for some people, that's very unsettling because they'll tell us, well, you know, the United States is a Christian nation. No, we're not. The problem. But we're talking about heaven. Well, where is heaven? I mean, is it a destination? It just can't be floaty out there somewhere. With its inexorable logic, employing observation and facts, science has taken its searchlight into the depths of space and has shown how implausible all of these theories are. The Earth is no longer the hub of the universe, but one of the smallest heavenly bodies traveling through the immensity of space. The sun itself is more than the center of one planetary vortex, while the stars are others are innumerable suns around which an infinite number of worlds spin. These suns are separated by distance that only are accessible through thought, even though they look like they could touch each other. In this assembly, ruled by eternal laws, and where the wisdom and omnipotence of the Creator are revealed, the earth is no more than an imperceptible spot and one of the least favored planets as to being habitability. Now, in Alien Interview, Ariel told us the earth it's the last place you'd want to put living souls. It's a terrible place in reality. The only thing we get to experience here is pain. And that is exactly the problem. We fail to understand that there's something greater beyond all this. If we could, in fact, talk to the spirit realm, which we can and will, they're us. We are them. Maybe they could shed a little light in what they're able to say. But you have to understand, as we have in detail, to understand what that realm is like that we're all going to. We're all going to be in groups. We know that. And that has been affirmed by many different other counter beliefs outside of the religious doctrines. Human beings are composed of body and spirit. The spirit is the principal reasoning, intelligent being, whereas the body is the material envelope that temporarily clothes the spirit so that it can fulfill its mission on earth and carry out the work needed for its evolution. After it has been used, the body is destroyed by the spirit, but the spirit survives. Deprived of the spirit, the body is only inert matter, like an instrument deprived of the parts that make it function. Without the body, the spirit retains everything, life and intelligence. Upon leaving the body behind, it returns to the spirit world from where it came in order to incarnate. Hence, there are two worlds, the corporeal world, composed of incarnate spirits, and the spirit world, composed of disincarnated spirits. Due to the materiality of their envelope, the beings of the corporeal world are connected to the earth or some other globe. Spirit world extends everywhere. However, it surrounds us and fills space without any designated limit. Due to the fluidic nature of their envelope, the beings that comprise it can cross great distances at the speed of thought instead of moving heavily upon the ground. The death of the body is no more than breaking of the ties that held them captive. Spirits are created simple and ignorant, but endowed with aptitude so that they may eventually know everything and evolve as a result of their free will. By evolving, they acquire new knowledge, new faculties, new perceptions, and consequently, new pleasures unknown to less evolved spirits. They see, hear, feel, and comprehend what less evolved spirits cannot see, hear, feel, and comprehend. Happiness is the direct result of the progress that is made, that has been made. Thus, of two spirits, one may not be as happy as the other solely because it is not of the same degree of intellectual and moral advancement. However, it is not necessary for each one to be in a separate place. Although they may exist side by side, one may be in darkness while seeing everything repleasant to the other, like a blind and sighted individual who have joined hands. One perceives the light while the other does not receive the least impression of it. Since spirits' happiness is inherent to their own individual qualities, they can enjoy it anywhere they may find themselves, whether on earth, in the midst of incarnates, or in space. A crude comparison will enable us to understand this situation better. If two individuals are at a concert, and one is a good musician with a trained ear, while the other is unfamiliar with music and has a tin ear, the first will experience a sensation of happiness, whereas the second will remain unmoved. For one comprehends and perceives what produces absolutely no impression on the other. The same applies to all sensations experienced by spirits, in which are the direct results of their ability to sense them. The spirit world displays splendors everywhere, harmonies, sensations that are less evolved spirits under the influence of matter cannot even perceive because they are only accessible to purified spirit. This is, I don't know for you, it explains more. I'm not going to get into everything, but we will eventually. This really begins to break out, and particularly I want to get up here. You can see where I've highlighted this already, but I want to show you this was one of the most interesting studies. The whole perception of hell, the intuition of future punishment, the Christian hell as an imitation of pagan hell. And we may get into this specifically because if you were like me, where you had this idea that somehow another, those that go to hell, when they die, the demons take them in there and throw them into the pit, the fiery pit, and they suffer there. And you've heard the stories of people who've had NDEs that said that they saw people in hell. And, you really begin to believe in this whole construct. But when you start studying it, and that's what I had to do, literally strip it away to where it came from, there's little foundation. In fact, there's no foundation for hell. They do it because that was the sick impressions. Most people's conception of hell is Dante's Inferno. Oh, the church has pushed that one, baby. All religions have that believe in that concept. And the thing about it is, when you look at Christianity, and particularly Islam, Judaism is a little different. They have a little different take. But this punishment thing, Buddha said that if one made it to heaven, it will become hell for them and they'll fall back down. Like I said, we're going to get into this thing because the whole idea of this fiery inferno, I'm going to tell you why it's a fallacy and why they never, why Christianity never made its inroads up into the northern regions, the Inuits, the native people of the Arctic regions. Because when their preachers and, missionaries came up there and told them about, if you violate God's law, that, you're going to be punished and go into this place in hell where fire and brimstone are, they were like, really? Well, we'll go there. Um, let me get out of this. So, breaking paradigms. And that's what we're here. This is what I really want to help people to do. Is that, I have figured out what my mission is. I hope you figure out yours. But it's breaking free of these chains. That's why I like my friend Jeffrey Doherty over there. We've got to bust out of these spells. That's why I teach magic. There has to be an alternative. If the spirit realm exists, then there's a tangible energy substance that we're all a part of. And I don't think any religion has any hold on it. I think that they have withheld much of the knowledge, and they certainly don't like us. All of us enlightened in this group, like, oh yeah, we're going to put you on the list. Well, that's fine. Put us on a list. While we're just having a discussion here, I read a lot of academic papers. In fact, there's a great website you can go. It's called academics.edu. Have a chance to read a lot of different submissions on papers that professors, doctorate candidates are putting out there. And if you begin to look at particularly magic and Christianity, thousands. And when you begin to look at this, so I took upon myself, I have a particular professor that I like her writings. And you can actually write to them. You can actually get their email. And I said, here's my problem with your work. I said, you lose all credibility when you keep referring to this Jesus. I said, you should be intelligent enough and should be well-educated enough and versed in the languages, particularly the alphabets, to understand there is no Jesus. That didn't exist until the mid-17th century. And I said, if we're going to stay to the academic rules, that where we know in history, and particularly when we study comparative religious studies, that you do not change the name of the gods. Tutankhamun, I mean, you don't do that. It's very disrespectful, number one. And if you begin to read and study enough history for religious comparative studies, you'll find out that virtually all gods, their names remain the same. And I said, but here's the problem. You keep quoting from a person that can never have existed. And I said, no one quotes the Latin Vulgate. I said, why? What's the name of this character that you're calling Jesus? What is its name? Because that would be its name. I said, sincerely, R. Wayne Steyer. She wrote back. And she said, dear sir, I first found that your response was somewhat abrasive, but she said, when I went to check you out on that, she says, you're absolutely right. She says, I have completely never make reference to the Latin Vulgate. But that's the Bible. At least the real one that they started comprising of. There ain't no Jesus in there. And she wrote back and she says, I'm going to have to correct my work. She says, because you're right, there is no Jesus. Then just because we want to use it in modern nomenclature as a representative of is no excuse. And again, we see now how that ignorance has been transferred even to highly educated individuals. So, and I'm just reading here, Jesus was the letters of the alphabet, now she is real. It kind of gets into the whole issue that we have to deal with here. But this is how it's done. I'm still waiting for anyone to tell me what exactly was Pilate's 3 names that he put above the supposed head of the state execution that never was written down. Odd, isn't it? Anyway, see, this is how it works. Thank you, David Berry. You are a good man. By the way, I'm going to have David and Al on, not this Friday, but next Friday. This Friday, you're going to have Haley on, which is going to be good. Trina will be this week. Tomorrow, we're going to pick up on where we left off on our spirits book. We're almost getting nearly finished with that. And I tell you what, thank you for the emails. I have received some fabulous emails that just, they bliss me. Yeah, lift me up. I mean, wow, thank you. It all makes it worth it. Wild, and thank you. So thank you, everyone. I'm just reading some of the stuff in the chat room, and it's delightful. I love it. We got good thinkers in here. We got men and women who are just, all of you are. I mean, if you're listening to me, and most of you give the thumbs up, and I appreciate that. But nevertheless, it's because you're brilliant minds. And that's what attracts me to you. I mean, it's what attracts us to each other, is the fact that there's the brilliancy of thought that is common amongst the group in here. And we have become a consistent group. I'm not out there to become, the next million subscriber channel. I don't want that. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to teach individuals and select groups that are looking for that knowledge that transcends the customs and what we were told to think. And we cover some controversial subjects here, but that's what it's about. And it's my hope that when I transcend, and isn't it odd that in hospice, do you know what they call patients that are dying? They call them, they're in transitioning. Yeah. So that I get to see all of y'all. If you make it before me, well, just wait around. I'll check you out. And if I'm over there, then I'll wait and check you out. I'm sorry. I just caught myself saying that. That's a Chevy Chase moment, no doubt about it. I'll wait to meet you on the other side. There we go. Laughter, folks, it is the best medicine. It truly is. If you will learn to laugh, you're going to be healthier. When you are attacked by other influences and you start learning to laugh, it just chases the blues away. That's all I got to say. Well, thank you. That's Martin and Heidi. That's good to see you, my dear. Anyway, I'm going to go and laugh a little bit more and then check you out. Yeah. Okay, this has been fun. I'll see y'all tomorrow at the same time. Have fun today if you're taking the day off. And if not, folks, we'll see you again. All right.